Sushruta for NEET is now available on the Google Play Store. Try it out for free.
Hello, my dear students. Hearty welcome to Jnanamarga.in biology classes. I am Professor G.K. Bhatt. In the last class, we have studied about the central nervous system, what are the parts of the central nervous system, and what are the functions of the different parts of the central nervous system. At the end of the class, we have also seen about the reflex action. Now, let us look into some of the sensory organs which receive the stimulus and pass on the impulses to the central nervous system. Have you ever thought, how do you feel the climatic changes in environment? Many times we feel it very cold or it is very hot. And also in the weather, you see that sometimes it is a sunny or cloudy. How we feel all the changes in our climate? How do we see an object? And how we perceive the colors? When we can make out the 7 different colors of the bouquet, is there in our eyes, there are separate receptor cells pertaining to each and every color? How we hear the sound? Is it that the sound we hear gets magnified? To answer all these questions, we have to look into the sensory organs. The sensory organs detect all types of changes in the environment and send appropriate signals to the central nervous system. And here in the central nervous system, all the inputs through the different sensory organs are processed and analyzed. What do you mean by this processing and analyzing? You must know that some of these, whatever you are seeing and whatever you are hearing, these are analyzed based on your previous experiences, without which it is not possible to analyze at all. During your childhood, whenever you are growing, your parents have taught you during very early childhood, see, this is red, this is green, this is blue, like that. And all these are learned behaviors. And you have learned to distinguish the different colors because you are taught about that. Or whenever a crow is calling, or a quail is calling, that is singing, we can easily make out the call of the crow from that of the call of the quail, cuckoo, because we have started associating with what we hear, with what we see. Right from the childhood, you have seen how this crow is always producing the sound or calling. And then immediately you can make out, without seeing the crow also, you can make out that yes, the crow is calling outside. So these are all some of the learnt behavior, and these learnt behavior are analyzed whenever we just hear the sound or whenever we see the object. So it is the receptors, they receive these signals, stimulus, and pass these stimulus through the neurons, efferent neurons, to the central nervous system. There it is processed and analyzed, and in return, some regulatory impulses pass on to the concerned parts of the body. Signals are then sent to different parts or centers of the brain here. This is how we can see changes in the environment. Now, we are going to study only about eyes and ear in today's class, because none of the other sense organs are mentioned in your syllabus. You know very well, eyes are the sensory organs concerned with the vision, and ear is the sensory organ concerned with the hearing. Let us look into the eye. Our paired eyes are located in the socket of the skull called orbit. So where we have these eyes, the space where our eyes are lodged, or so to say eyeball is lodged, is the socket. A brief account of structure and functions of the human eye is explained here. The adult human eyeball, because eye consists of eyeball, adult human eyeball is nearly spherical, not 100% spherical. It is a nearly spherical structure, and the eyeball is composed of three layers. The wall of the eyeball is made up of three layers. Which are these three layers? We shall look into this one by one. The external layer, that is the outermost layer, called sclera, is made up of dense connective tissues. You have to remember this point. The sclera is made up of dense connective tissue. The anterior part of this sclera, anterior portion of this layer, is always called cornea. Whatever the white part you see in our eye is the cornea, anterior portion of the sclera. Sclera is also called sclerotic layer. Inner to this, that is the middle layer of the eye, is called choroid. The choroid is a vascular layer. It contains many blood vessels. Therefore, the choroid looks bluish in color. Choroid is the middle layer. This is what you have. Outer layer sclera. In front it becomes, it forms a cornea. And inner to this, you have choroid layer. Vascular layer of the eye. Bluish in color. The choroid layer is thin over the posterior two-thirds of the eye. And when you see the choroid in front, the choroid layer becomes thick. In the anterior part, you can see to form what is known as a ciliary body. This is what you have, the ciliary body. I repeat, the choroid layer, which is generally thin over the posterior two-thirds of the eye. In the anterior, it becomes a little bit thick to form the ciliary body. The ciliary body itself continues forward. Ciliary body continues forward to form a pigmented structure, opaque structure called iris. This is what you have, iris. So, if you look into our eye, you see this iris like this, and at the center of the iris, you have the pupil. So, the ciliary body continues to form a pigmented opaque structure called iris, which is the visible colored portion of the eye. You notice a different color eye in different individuals. Our eye color is actually due to the pigment that is present here in this particular part of the eye called iris. Color of the eye is due to the iris, due to the colored pigment present in the iris. Therefore, different individuals have little bit different shaded eyes. The eyeball contains a transparent crystalline lens, and this lens is held in place by ligaments. You can see here, attached to this ciliary body, you do come across the ligaments, and this the ligament that holds the lens. Eyeball contains a transparent crystalline lens, and this lens is held in place by ligaments attached to the ciliary body. These are the three important points that you should know. Ciliary body, ligament, then the iris. In front of the lens, there is an aperture. Surrounded by the iris, or in the center of the iris, an aperture, and this aperture is called pupil, through which the light rays enters into the eye. The diameter of the pupil is regulated by the muscle fibers of the iris. You have muscle fibers, radial muscle fibers in the iris, and this is responsible for changing the diameter of the pupil. As I told you, the pupil is present in the center of the iris. Now let us come to the innermost layer. The innermost layer of the eye is called a retina. And this retina contains three layers. Very important, you must know which are these three layers from inside to outside or outside to inside. And these three layers from inside to outside, this is what inside and this is outside. Inside to outside. One is, that is the ganglionic cells. There are three layers of cells inside inner layer. Retina itself is made up of three layers of cells. The innermost layer, or from inside to outside, the layer is called, one is the layer made up of ganglionic cells. You can see here. This is what the ganglionic cell layer. Outer to that is the bipolar cell layer. You have already heard that bipolar neurons are present inside the sensory organs like eye, ear, bipolar cell layer. And outer to this is that of the photoreceptor cells layer. This is a photoreceptor cell layer. So we have, therefore, as you can make out, you have ganglionic cells, layer having ganglionic cells or ganglion cells, layer having bipolar cells, bipolar neurons, and a layer having photoreceptor cells. So these are the three layers present in the retina from inside to outside. So always you should remember, inside to outside, ganglion cells, bipolar neuron cells, and that of the photoreceptor cells. Right? Coming to the photoreceptor cells, in our eye, there are two types of photoreceptor cells. One, rods, and another one is the cones. You must know, rods are concerned with what and cones are concerned with what. There are two types of photoreceptor cells, rods and cones. Rods are generally concerned with the dim light, enabling us to see in the dim light, and cones are always concerned with the seeing in the bright light. So you have rods and cones, and these are the two types of important photoreceptor cells we come across. You can make out here. These are the rod cells. These are the rods, rod-like cells. And this is what you have the cone cells. Cone-like, conical, cone-like cells, rod cells and cone cells. And these are present in the photoreceptor cell area. These rods and cone cells contain light-sensitive protein called photopigment. The daylight vision, also known as a photopic vision or daylight vision, and color vision are functions of cones. And twilight or scotopic vision, twilight or scotopic vision is a function of rods. There are two types of cells, photoreceptor cells. As you know, cones are concerned with the daylight vision or color vision, and cones are concerned with the scotopic vision or twilight vision or dim light. The rods contain purplish red protein, another important point, purplish red protein called rhodopsin. And this rhodopsin is otherwise called visual purple. Rhodopsin is commonly called visual purple, and this contains a derivative of vitamin A. So this is another important point. Derivative of vitamin A. Rods contain purplish red protein called rhodopsin. Easy to remember. Rod contain rhodopsin. Rhodopsin. And it is otherwise called visual purple. And this contains the derivative of vitamin A. Always ask a question. In the human eye, there are three types of cones. You know, cones are concerned with the differentiating the color. There are three types of cones which possess their own characteristic photopigments that respond to red, green, and blue lights. You must know these are the only three types of cones that you have. That means we have the cones to see only three types of colors, to distinguish three types of colors, mainly red, green, and blue lights. How to remember this? You just remember GRB, very famous brand of ghee, milk products. So, we have here, as you can make out, the cone cells which enables us to see the green color, the red color, and the blue color. Three kinds of cones, trichromates. So, then the question is, how that we perceive or see or differentiate other colors? This is due to the sensation of different colors in our eye are produced by various combinations of these cones. Various combinations of these cones and their photopigments. You can actually try yourself. You just take these different colors, red, blue, green, etc. Mix one with another one, and you'll come to know what type of color develops. So all other color which we perceive, it is because of the combination of these three photoreceptors. When these cones are stimulated equally, when the cones are stimulated equally, a sensation of white light is produced. If these cones, all these three cones are stimulated equally, that result is white. With regard to the nerve that is supplying to the eye, the nerve that supplies eye is mainly optic nerve. Of course, you do come across two more nerves. The optic nerves leave the eye and the retina, and the retina blood vessel enter the eye at a point. And this point where the nerve leave the eye or blood vessels enter the eye is called blind spot. Why it is called blind spot? Because in this spot where the nerve leave the eye, retina, optic nerve leave the eye, or where the retinal blood vessels enter into the eye, it is somewhat at the middle point. You would come across, you would come across, you see this region without any cone cells. This area is called blind spot. Photoreceptor cells are not present here. Whatever the cells which are concerned with the receiving the light, they are not present here. Rods and cones. Photoreceptor cells are not present in this region, and hence it is called blind spot. So, the blind spot is situated at a point medial to and slightly above the posterior pole of the eyeball. This is what the area where you have the blind spot. So, we must remember, blind spot is the area where the optic nerve leaves the eye, or the blood vessels enter the eye, or the place where the photoreceptor cells are absent. At the posterior pole of the eye, lateral at the side, lateral to this blind spot, there is a yellowish pigment spot called macula lutea with a central pit called fovea. With a central pit called fovea. What is the significance of this fovea? The fovea is a very thin portion of the retina where only the cones are densely packed. There are no rods in this area. Only cones are present, and that too densely packed in this particular spot of the macula lutea called fovea. Whenever the light rays enters into this particular spot, it improves the acuity resolution of to the maximum. It is the point where the visual acuity is greatest. So many times, if at all, you might have got this experience. Your friend while going, he or she may show you, see that bird, how nice it is, how pretty it is, how beautiful it is. Then you may ask, where is that bird? I can't see. Then your friend directs you, see that branch, that side, and on that nearby that another branch, see on that it is there. Then he is, yeah, it is there, fine. That means you are trying to see that the light rays are getting into your acute point of vision, that is the fovea. The space between the cornea and the lens, there is a space between the cornea and the lens, and this space is called aqueous chamber, and it is filled with a fluid, watery fluid called aqueous humor. The space between the lens and the cornea is called aqueous chamber, and it is filled with a fluid called aqueous humor. The space behind the lens, and it is between the lens and the retina, is called vitreous chamber, and it is filled with a fluid. It is filled with a transparent gel called vitreous humor. So the space that is present between the lens and the cornea is called aqueous chamber. The space present between the lens and the retina is called the vitreous chamber. Aqueous chamber is filled with the watery fluid, and vitreous chamber is filled with the transparent gel, and it is called vitreous humor. Watery fluid is called aqueous humor. You have aqueous humor here and vitreous humor here. Aqueous humor is watery and vitreous humor is a transparent gel. Now let us look into mechanism of vision. The light rays in visible wavelength focused on the retina to the cornea and lens generate potentials, impulses in the rods and cones. The photosensitive compound, photopigments in human eye, is composed of opsin, and retinol. Opsin is a protein and retinol is an aldehyde of vitamin A. Light induces the dissociation of the retinol from the opsin, not association. Please remember, it results in dissociation. Dissociation for retinol from opsin result in changes in the structure of opsin. There will be change in the chemical structure of the opsin. This causes membrane permeability changes. As a result, the potential differences are generated in the photoreceptor cells. This produces a signal that generates action potentials in the ganglion cells through bipolar cells. These action potentials, or what you say impulses, are transmitted by the optic nerve to the visual cortex. You know, in front of these bipolar cells, you would come across the ganglion cells. To the ganglion cells, it is communicated to the nerves, to the visual cortex here of the brain, where the neural impulses are analyzed and the image formed on the retina is recognized based on earlier memory and experience. I already told you, whatever you get to know by seeing an object or hearing the sound, it is only because of the earlier memory and experience. You are relating to whatever you have learned throughout our life. So that ends the study of this particular sensory organ, that is the eye. Now let us move to the next important sensory organ, that is the ear. Our ear performs two sensory functions. Eye is concerned with only one function, that is visualizing, seeing. But ear is concerned with the two functions, hearing and maintenance of a body balance. Hearing and maintenance of body balance. There are two functions, hearing and maintenance of the balance. The ear can be divided into three major parts called outer ear. This is what you have. Outer ear. Middle ear. This is the one. Middle ear. And the inner ear. In this figure, it is shown differently. You can see this color indicates the outer ear. And this is the middle ear. And this is the inner ear. Blue color. Inner ear, middle ear, and outer ear. Let us study these one by one. The outer ear consists of the pinna and external auditory meatus. It is also called external auditory canal. This is what you have, the pinna. Our exposure part of the ear is the pinna. Outer ear consists of pinna, which leads to the external auditory meatus. This is what you have, external auditory meatus or external auditory canal. The pinna collects vibrations in the inner ear, which produces sound. The external auditory pinna leads to the external auditory canal. The external auditory meatus leads inwards and extends up to the tympanic membrane. This is what you have, the tympanic membrane. Tympanic membrane is commonly called eardrum. The external auditory meatus, also known as external auditory canal, it leads to the eardrum, tympanic membrane. Here, in this external auditory canal, and also in the pinna, we do come across very fine hairs. And also wax secreting gland called a sebaceous gland. Sebaceous glands are otherwise called oil glands. in the skin of the pinna and the meatus. If you look into the pinna and the external auditory meatus or external auditory canal, we do come across fine hairs, very fine hairs, and also wax secreting oil glands. That is why many times when you just put a earbud and clean your ear, in the earbud you see waxy secretion. And these waxy secretions are produced just to collect what all dust particles they try to enter into our ear. The tympanic membrane or eardrum, eardrum is composed of connective tissues covered with the skin outside, this part. This side there is the skin. On the inner side, there will be mucous membrane. If you see from this side, there is a mucous membrane. And if you see from this side, there is what is called skin. So this is the structure of the tympanic membrane or eardrum. On the outer side, it has the skin. On the inner side, it is covered by mucous membrane. Coming to the middle ear, the middle ear contains three ossicles. There are three ossicles called malleus, incus, and stapes. Remember, miss. In this miss, yes is missing, not that miss. Miss, malleus, incus, stapes. This is malleus, middle one is the incus, and the innermost is the stapes. The malleus is attached to the tympanic membrane. This is the tympanic membrane. Malleus is found attached to the tympanic membrane, and stapes is found attached to what is known as the oval window. There's a window called oval window. And in between that, you have the incus. Malleus is attached to the tympanic membrane, and the stapes is attached to the oval window of the cochlea. What you have here, this is the cochlea. This is the oval window of a cochlea. We shall see that. The ear ossicles increase the efficiency of transmission of sound waves to the inner ear. Transmission of sound waves to the inner ear. There is a tube now. What is called Eustachian tube or Eustachian tube. An Eustachian tube connects the middle ear cavity with the pharynx. Look here, this is the middle ear. And there's a cavity here. And this cavity is connected with the pharynx by Eustachian tube. Why? Why it is connected? The Eustachian tube helps in equalizing the pressures on either sides of the eardrum. You might have experienced it while climbing up the hill area, ghats or hill areas or mountains, or getting down from the mountains or hill area. Whenever you move either from the sea coast or the plain area, up the ghat, up the hills, always or move from the top of the hill down to the bottom or to the sea level, we always feel a sort of deafness. We feel that something disturbing, some sort of disturbance in hearing. At that time, we introduce our little finger and shake it, or sometimes we use shallow air, engulf air, to see that our eardrum or our hearing becomes perfectly all right. Yes, for this purpose, you have an Eustachian tube leading from the middle ear to the pharynx. Whenever you feel such type of deafness, the moment you swallow the air and try to bring the pressure on both of the sides of the eardrum equal, you feel comfortable. So, equalizing the pressure on either side of the eardrum is the function of this Ishta-Chien-Tyo. This is what magnified diagram. You must know the labeling of these parts of this here also. Coming to the parts of this inner ear, the fluid filled inner ear called labyrinth consists of two parts, bony labyrinth and membranous labyrinth. You have here, this is what you see the cochlea. In this cochlea, you see two parts. One is the bony part and another one is the membranous part. The inner ear is filled with the fluid. The fluid-filled inner ear, called a labyrinth, consists of two parts, bony part and membranous part or membranous labyrinth. The bony labyrinth is a series of channels. What you see here, the bluish color one, it is a series of channels, bony labyrinth. Inside these channels lies membranous labyrinth, orange colored one. This lies inside the bony labyrinth. And you must know, inside the bony labyrinth or outside the membranous labyrinth, there is a fluid called perilymph. There is a fluid called perilymph. Or inside the bony labyrinth, there is the perilymph. Embedded in the perilymph, there is the membranous labyrinth. And membranous labyrinth is filled with a fluid called endolymph. It is very simple. Whatever you have, lymph is a fluid. Whatever fluid you have inside the membranous labyrinth, it is called endolymph. Whatever the fluid that you have outside the membranous labyrinth, it is called perilymph. Peri means outer. Endo is inner. So you have here two labyrinths. One is the bony part called bony labyrinth, and the membranous part called membranous labyrinth. Bony labyrinth has perilymph, or membranous labyrinth has endolymph on the inner side, and on the outer side there is the perilymph. This is what you have. So this fluid, whatever you see here, this fluid, whatever you have here, this fluid, this is the perilymph. This is the perilymph. And inside this, whatever you have, in this membranous labyrinth, inside whatever you have, that is the endolymph. Inside that you have whatever that you see here, it is the endolymph. Actually, it is membranous labyrinth. Inside the membranous labyrinth, you have endolymph. The coiled portion of the labyrinth is called cochlea. This is what coiled portion you have. This is what coiled portion you have. This coiled portion of the labyrinth is called cochlea. The whole is a labyrinth. The coiled portion is called labyrinth. Sorry, the coiled portion of the labyrinth is called cochlea. The membranes constituting cochlea, the membranes inside the cochlea, you come across membranes. What membranes you come across? One of the membrane you come across is called a Reissner's membrane. Another membrane you come across is called basilar membrane. One more membrane is there, what is called a tectorial membrane. Now, the cochlea is divided into three compartments. One is scala vestibuli, another one is called scala media, and one more is called scala tympani. How these three chambers got formed, or three compartments got formed? Because inside the cochlea we have a Reissner's membrane. This Reissner's membrane divides the cochlea into two compartments. Upper one, scala vestibuli, lower one, scala media. So this is what is called a Reissner's membrane. And there is one more membrane called basilar membrane. The basilar membrane is present between the scala media and scala tympani. Or putting it in another way, the coiled portion of the labyrinth, which is called cochlea, has two membranes dividing the cochlea into three compartments. What are these two membranes? One is the Reissner's membrane and another one is the basilar membrane. These two membranes divide the cochlea into three compartments. Upper compartment is called scala vestibuli, Middle compartment is called scala media, and the lower compartment is called scala tympani. And what you must know, scala vestibuli is filled with the perilimb. It is filled with the perilimb. Scala media is filled with the endolimb, and scala tympani is again filled with the perilimb. Perilimb, right? Look here. The space within cochlea called scala media is filled with endolimb. This is what uncoiled portion of the cochlea. This is the upper one, scala vestibuli. This is the middle one, scala media, and this is the lower one, scala tympani. Scala tympani and scala vestibuli, both these are filled with the perilimb, and scala media is filled with endolimb. So the space within cochlea called scala media is filled with endolimb. At the base of the cochlea, the scala vestibuli ends at the oval window. See, this is oval window. Oval window. Where it is present? At the base. At the base of cochlea, the scala vestibuli ends at the oval window. This is the scala vestibuli. Ends at the oval window. On this side is scala vestibuli. On the other side, you have already seen a stapes. There is a stapes bone on the inner side. And towards the middle ear. So, while the scala tympani, this is the scala tympani, the lower one, it terminates at the round window. Here you have round window. This is the oval window, and this is the round window. So, scala tympani terminates at the round window, which opposes to the middle ear. Now, let us look into another important structure, organ of Corti. The organ of Corti is a structure located on the basilar membrane. I have told you there are three membranes. One is the regional membrane, the upper one. Then you have the middle one here, basilar membrane. And this basilar membrane, situated on this basilar membrane, we have a very important structure concerned with the hearing. That is the organ of Corti. The organ of Corti is a structure located on the basilar membrane which contains hair cells. You can see here, hair cells that act as an auditory receptor. These hair cells, what you come across, they act as auditory receptors. The hair cells are present in rows on the internal side of the organ of Corti. This is the organ of Corti, and this organ of Corti has the hair cells. What are different types of cells? You need not know. You need not know the names of these different cells. And yet remember, there are cells with hair, therefore they are called hair cells. And these hair cells act as auditory receptors. The hair cells are present in the rows on the internal side of the organ of Corti. The basal end of hair cell is in close contact with the afferent nerve fiber. Look here, these are all hair cells, and this is the basal end. The basal end is concerned with is closely in contact with the afferent nerve fibers, which takes the impulses, afferent nerve fibers. A large number of processes called stereocilia, hair cells, that hairs are actually called stereocilia. These are the hairs, others called stereocilia. These stereocilia are not concerned with the movement. They are not moving. They are immovable. The large number of processes called stereocilia are projected from the apical part of each hair cell, and therefore they get to the name hair cell. Actual hair cells are with the stereocilia. Always ask a question, where you encounter stereocilia? Inside the inner ear. Above the rows of hair cells is a thin elastic membrane called tectorial membrane. There is a membrane, this is called tectorial membrane. This is one more membrane. So you have seen the regional membrane, basilar membrane. One more membrane is the tectorial membrane. The inner ear also contains a complex system called vestibular apparatus. This is another part. Whatever you have heard so far, it is all concerned with the hearing. Now you have another part, what is concerned with the balancing. The inner ear also contains complex system called vestibular apparatus. So far we have seen cochlea. Now you are looking into another part called vestibular apparatus, located above the cochlea. The cochlea and the vestibular apparatus together form inner ear. The vestibular apparatus is composed of three semicircular canals. Look here. 3 semicircular canals. One, two, and this is 3. They are semicircular canals. The vestibular apparatus consists of 3 semicircular canals and otolith organ consisting of saccule and utricle. This is what you have, the saccule, and the other one is the utricle. Utricle. These utricle and saccule, they are together called otolith organ, mainly concerned with the balancing. So vestibular apparatus consists of 3 semicircular canals and otolith organs consisting of saccule and utricle. Now let us see what is the function of these. This is again vestibular apparatus showing you the 3 semicircular canals and the otolith organs which includes utricle and saccule. Right? And these vestibular apparatus provides sense of equilibrium. Each semicircular canal, look here, this 1, 2, 3. Each semicircular canal lies in a different plane at right angles to each other. Very important point. They are situated at right angles to each other. Right angles to each other. The membranous canals are suspended in the perilimb of the bony canals. Here also, you see that it is a bony canal outside, and inside the bony canal, bony labyrinth, you have the membranous labyrinth. And as you have seen here also you have the endolimb inside the membranous labyrinth and the perilimb inside the or outside the membranous labyrinth. What you see here is the base of the canals. You have these semicircular canals. The base of the canals is swollen and is called ampulla. Base of the canal is called ampulla, which contains a projecting ridge called crista ampullaris. Inside is you come across crista ampullaris. See, these are the crista ampullaris which are present inside the ampulla. Easy to remember, crista ampullaris. Inside the ampulla, we have a projecting ridge called crista ampullaris, which has hair cells. So now let us see what is there inside the saccule. The saccule and the utricle contain a projecting ridge called macula. This is what you have, the saccule, and this is the utricle and saccule. Here also you come across projecting ridge, and this ridge is called macule or maculae. These are called maculae. So crista ampullaris projecting ridge inside the ampulla, macula inside the saccule and utricle. The crista and the macula are the specific receptors of the vestibular apparatus responsible for maintenance of a balance of the body and posture. Maintenance of the balance of the body and posture. So, saccule, utricle with the macula and ampulla with the crista. These play very important role in maintaining the balance and posture of the body. Now let us look at the mechanism of hearing. How does ear convert sound waves into neural impulses, which are censored and processed by the brain, enabling us to recognize the sound? The external ear receives the sound waves and directs them to the eardrum. The eardrum vibrates in response to the sound waves, and these vibrations are transmitted through the ear ossicles, malleus, incus, stapes to the oval window. Eardrum vibrates whenever this sound wave enters, and it is passed through these 3 of these small bones. You know, these are the small bones, and stapes is the smallest bone in the body, and it is passed through oval window. The vibrations are passed through oval window onto the fluid of the cochlea, where they generate waves in the limbs. And these waves in the limbs induce a ripple in the basilar membrane. You have seen the basilar membrane with the organ of Corti. And these movements of basilar membrane bend the hair cells, pressing them against the tectorial membrane. Tectorial membrane is present above the basilar membrane. As a result, nerve impulses are generated in the associated afferent neurons. And these impulses are transmitted by the afferent nerves fibers via auditory nerves to the auditory cortex of the brain, where impulses are analyzed and sound is recognized. So this is how the ear functions. So with this, we have completed these sense organs and also this particular chapter, that is with regard to neural control and coordination. Right.